request a birth story about Lily. So I thought I would jump on this morning and yeah, just give you a little rundown of what happened with Lily and why she's no longer with us. With Lily's pregnancy, I was really sick, like couldn't eat, just all I wanted to do was vomit. I was pretty dead for like the first 15 to 20 weeks, if I can remember correctly. I think I was hospitalized a few times just to be on the drip. It was probably only 2 or 3 times maybe. And then yeah, after that everything was good. I just carried on. Actually it was a 36-week appointment, because that's when they do the big appointment. They talk about the way that you want to have the baby and if there's any complications, etc, etc. So yep, we went in for that appointment. They tried to find Lily's head and they realized that she was other way around, so head at the top and legs down the bottom. So she was completely breached, like her bum was in my in the birthing canal and her legs were up like this and her head was here, which was quite uncomfortable because her head was like right in my ribs. Yeah, so then they just waited until 37 weeks to see if she had turned, because we had the either option of just having booked in for a scheduled cesarean just in case she didn't turn around, just to birth naturally, but I wouldn't have been able to birth at Tweed. I would have had to have gone to a bigger hospital, so probably Gold Coast or maybe even Brisbane, I think they said. Or we could have got an ECV. So we opted for the ECV. So they said at 37 weeks, we would go into the maternity ward. So I kept getting checkups every week. And then, yeah, we went to 37 weeks. They checked her on the ultrasound and she was still breech. So we went up to the maternity ward. I think we were booked in at about 11 o'clock. Jake took the day off. I had my auntie that came with me to support me. It was, I think I was more nervous than I should have been, because it wasn't really that bad. Like I didn't need any pain relief. I didn't need gas. I just breathed through it. They ended up needing 2 doctors to be able to turn Lily. But in the end, I actually felt when she turned, she just slotted straight in and her head was down. They put me on the monitor for, I think it was half an hour to an hour, just to make sure she was okay, and then to make sure that my waters didn't break. Wanted to monitor me for a little while to make sure that I was okay and she was okay. I went to the toilet and came back into bed, laid down, and pop, I actually rolled over and I just heard this pop. And my waters had broken. Getting up straight away and running to the toilet, and then I was sitting on the toilet and I was yelling to my husband. I was like, babe, my waters are broken. He was like, what? And I'm like, can you get my phone? And I had obviously dripped all the way to the bathroom, so he's, as the good husband he is, he's cleaning it up. And then yeah, I remember calling my auntie and I called her and I said, my waters are broken, what shall I do? And she's like, all right, well, this is the time to rest. She said, rest up, because you're going to have a long time. It's going to be a while until Lily would come. I tried to go back to sleep, but I was so excited that finally I was in labour and I'd be having baby soon. I think it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, like 6 a.m. I decided, nah, I can't sleep. Got up, had some toast, had a cup of tea because I didn't know when I'd be eating again. Nothing really happened. There was kind of like period pains, kind of was not really sore. I was just like, okay, this is just the start of it. Saturday or Sunday. Anyway, I laboured during the night. I ended up taking the doona out into the lounge room and Jake and I just watched Netflix episodes. I can't even remember what we were watching, but yeah, I just laboured through the night. Jake went to sleep. He had some sleep. I just sat in the lounge room, just did what I needed to do, just relaxed. And then it came to Monday. I called them and said, my waters have been broken for 24 hours. And they said, come in. They put me on the monitor and that, yeah, they could see I was having contractions. They said to come back in like 3 or 4 hours if anything had changed. And then I remember at that point I was walking down the hallway and the contractions were kind of stopping me in my tracks, but I could still talk to Jake and do everything. And I remember when I walked out of the hospital, when the first time when I got monitored, the midwife was like, I will see you before my shift ends. And her shift ended at 7:30. And I think we went in at, might have been about 12:30 just to be checked with the monitor to make sure that baby was okay. But bear in mind, we only lived 2 minutes, possibly 3 minutes with the red light at the traffic lights to the hospital. So that's the reason why I laboured at home for so long, because I didn't want to be in the environment of being in the hospital. Go wrong, I was 2-3 minutes away from the hospital. So just thought I'd clarify that. So anyway, we came home and then, yeah, the contractions just kicked into gear then. I remember telling Jake to call my auntie and call my mum because they were coming into the birth room with us. And then I think by 4:30 we got to the hospital. So I ended up asking them to run me a bath. So they ran me a bath, and that was the best thing for me at that point. It was like pain relief times 1,000. I just laboured in the bath for God knows how long. It would have been 4 or 5 hours. It was crazy. I had Jake and my mum were alternating with pouring water on my back because that seemed to really relax me, and all I could concentrate on was the water running down my back instead of having these contractions. It kind of stalled. Like I was still getting really bad contractions, and they were checking Bub's heart rate with the Doppel thing, and baby's heart rate was fine, even through a contraction. Like there was no deceleration. She was always the right heart rate, and they were checking me that I can remember, maybe every 2 to 3 minutes when I was in active labour. Yeah, eventually Jake's mum also came in. She came in and she was in there for a while. And then eventually she said to the midwife, I think Steph needs to get out of the water. She's not really progressing anywhere and she's been in the water for a while. And they were like, yep, good idea. So they got me out. I laboured in the ward for a bit, not in the ward, in the room for a bit. I ended up sitting on like a donut chair to try and help her come down because, she was right there, but she just wasn't coming out. Eventually they put me on the bed, and because they were like, nah, we need to get this baby out. She's right there. She needs to come out. So they put me in the bed. They ended up putting my legs into stirrups. And after that, I don't really remember what happened. I just remember Jake behind me, my auntie on my one side, my mum on the other side, and then Joe was kind of in the corner. I remember the midwife looking at me and just going, we need to get this baby out, Steph. And they just said, can we cut you? And I'm like, yep. So they did it. I didn't feel a thing. So they gave me an episiotomy. You can Google that because I'm not explaining that one. And then, I just remember them cutting me as I was contracting, and 1 or 2 pushes and Lily was out. They put her on my chest and they were trying to make her cry, but I just kind of knew something was wrong. And I don't remember the color of Lily, but a lot of people have told me that she was that grey color that isn't good. And I think she was on my chest for probably like a millisecond before they took her over to the resus bay. And with everything that happened, I was kind of like in a daze. Like I didn't really know what was going on. I just remember lying there. My auntie was rubbing my hand saying that it's okay, it's okay. And one thing I remember was, because my auntie knew what Lily was before we did, because we had a scan and my auntie knew, she's seen the sex of her. I remember turning to my auntie and going, because we had no time to ask what she was, what the sex of the baby was. All I remember is turning to my auntie and saying, what did we have? And she said, you had a little girl. And that was just, we thought the whole time that Lily was a boy. So that was just, All I remember was about 20 people rushing into our room, because obviously the button got pushed, so it's like a code red. So there was so many people running into this little room. So they all ran in, and then all I could hear was they needed to give her an adrenaline needle to try and start pumping her heart again. And I remember just looking over there, and there was just nothing. There was no movement, there was no crying, there was just absolutely nothing from her. And then, yeah, my auntie started crying, and she kept saying to me, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. I had Jake next to me holding my hand with my mum. At this point, I think Jo was still in the corner. But yeah, she was the closest to Lily at that point. I think they ended up getting her to breathe a little bit, and then they just rushed her out to their special, like their NICU. It's like they call it the nursery at Tweed. So yeah, so they took her out. Jake ended up going with her. Jake and his mum ended up going into the nursery with Mia while they worked on her to try and do whatever they had to do. I couldn't go in because I still had to be stitched up. But my auntie and my mum stayed with me, and I think it would have been, so we had her at 9:26 p.m. 2 a.m. until I got to see her, because I had to be stitched up and my placenta actually got stuck. They gave me the injection to try and contract the placenta out, but it didn't get stuck. I was actually prepped for surgery, but the obstetrician managed to pull out the placenta and get that out without me having to go to surgery, so that was good. That Lily had to be transferred to the Mater Hospital in Brisbane because she wasn't well. And they told me that when I was in recovery, so I hadn't actually seen Lily, so I didn't really, and no one had actually told us how bad she was at this point. Eventually I got put into a wheelchair and I got wheeled down to see Lily, and when we got there, our Lily had a tube down, a breathing tube down her throat. She had both of her arms had needles in, so she had two like little flap things on there to make sure she didn't pull them out. She did not look good at all. And we got to spend some time with her there before she got transferred. I think it was about 2:30 by the time the ambulance got here to pick her up. She didn't need to be airlifted because it wasn't peak time, so that was good. So she just got to go on the ambulance. Yeah, so we had to say, Jake got to go with Lily, but I couldn't go because I had a high heart rate, probably due to everything that's happened, but they wouldn't let me leave until the morning.